All right, everybody. My name is Sylvain Rochon, and I'm still writing The Engineering Paradise, the book number 2. And today we're going to be talking about health, the Ministry of Health. It's something that I do care about quite a bit. I'm a trained biochemist. Even though I've never really worked a whole lot, like after my thesis and things like that. I'm also a chemical engineer, and I've always been into science and health and biology. Trying to explain how the brain works and how we work in general as humans, and how we operate in society, how all of this works, right? So it's really important to me that we also have a very good health system. And I've been fortunate to be born in Canada, because Canada has an excellent health system. It is free, it's covered by our taxes, basically, right? But our good friends and neighbors in the States don't have such a system. They're struggling with it politically right now, trying to reform it, make it more available to everybody, but it's hitting some problems. So it's very close to heart what I'm going to say here. Like in the near future, we're still talking about the ideal future. We are engineering a paradise. What we do want is a free healthcare system. Absolutely, all around the planet, not only the developed countries, but everybody should be able to be healthy. And the main reason for that is not because it's right, but because we want a productive society and we want to avoid suffering. Nobody likes suffering, and nobody wants to see other people suffer either. So if you have some kind of disease, you may be suffering. If you have some part of your body that is failing, you're suffering. So these should all be covered by the free healthcare. No matter what your income, what you're doing, you're relaxing, you're an artist, you're working really hard, you're working for the government or whatever, you should be covered, okay? The cost of unhealthy people is extreme. I mean, if you're not healthy and you're not productive, it has a very big impact. In particular, when you think about the elderly, and we'll get back to that a little bit later, because our bodies fail as we get older, and the older we are, the tougher it is. And then typically there's more of a need for treatment and medicine as we grow older. And you know, if you look at statistics, and I pulled them out for you at some point, you know, individuals that are, let's say, less than 65 years old, the expense, this is in the States, American expenses for people that are 65 years old or less is less than $4,000 a year per person. And on average, people that are age 65 or older, the yearly expense average is over 10,000. So it's over twice. So after a certain age, the health cost balloons on average on an annual basis. That's just because of the body becomes problematic. It ages, it fails, diseases start cropping up a lot more. But we'll talk about aging a little bit later. But just suffice to say that is, you know, physical health problems cause a severe economical problem. And this is a drain on resources, people are suffering and all that stuff. So we want free healthcare so that the minimum amount of people are suffering. And making it free ensures that. If you are healthy, then you're productive, you're happy, you're not stressed as much, you're not irritable as much, so you're in society and you're doing well, right? And that's really important to do that. Now, what should be covered by this free healthcare? That's a big question, and that's what the Ministry of Health would be doing primarily, on top of course, funding whatever needs to be funded. Is to decide what is covered and what is not. Like, there's a whole bunch of examples, like I said, Canada and Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Japan, Korea, like every developed country except Japan, even Russia is on board with a free healthcare system that is universal for the most part. All you need to do is really to select what is not covered, because you can't cover absolutely everything, including electives, because then people just go nuts and do whatever they want, and it's all on everybody else's dollar. And we don't want to have any abuse. So the ministry would choose what is free and what is not. Now, obviously, what prevents significant suffering, what heals someone, what treats someone that has a serious injury or serious problem, that's all covered. That's basically free. Not every medicine is equal. Some medicine are off the shelf and are more designed for small ailments, like aspirin, for example. If you have a light headache, well, we won't pay you medicine if you have a very small headache, but you can go over the counter, pay a few bucks to get some aspirin, and that's going to help you a little bit. That's great. That's no problem. Just for these additional things, you pay out of your pocket. But whatever is being used at a hospital for a surgery, for like a major surgery or an accident, all that stuff, you shouldn't be worrying about it. This is basically the Canadian system. You just show you're a Canadian citizen or a citizen of that specific province, and you moved in, and we don't see a bill ever. It's all covered, whatever it is. And then there's usually a recommendation of medicine afterwards. Like the doctor would say, well, if you want, you can take these pills that will do this, this, that, and you can pick those up at the pharmacy for extra costs out of pocket. But that medicine usually is not critical. If you don't take that medicine, if you don't buy it, you won't have serious problems. It's an option, so it's out of your pocket. If it's not an option for your health, for your recovery, then it's covered. Basically, that's the general rules of it. That's really important. And if you have a healthy population, what happens is that the crime rates even go lower. And productivity is high, people are happy, they don't complain as much. It's great. Now, there are some very, very interesting new advancements in medicine that are coming out, and I wanted to spend some time to let you know what I think about what would be covered and what not, because these are new elements that are super exciting to keep us healthy very long, okay? And it's something we have to look at. Like, for example, organ replacements. We've had transplants for a while, but then that requires somebody to die, and then giving their organs to somebody else, and the person needs to be compatible. And as soon as you have the transplant, there's a chance that the organ fails or it gets rejected. And if it holds, it won't be forever, and you need to take autoimmune suppressants so that your body doesn't reject the foreign material, because it's not your cells, not your genetic code that's inside you. But now organ replacements, that's something fairly new. You either by growing new organs based off of your own cells, or 3D printing organs from your own stem cells or your own cells. These techniques are not fully developed just yet, but in a number of years, maybe within the next 10 years, we'll see an emergence of organ replacement. So instead of like if you have a problem with your kidneys, then you can take some of your cells, create new kidneys, grow new kidneys, or print new kidneys, and then you're transplanting your own kidneys, like the brand new kidneys that you grown, they're healthy, and transplant your own. Now, in those cases, there's no rejection and no autoimmune response for those cells, because it's yours. It's the same genetic code. That's awesome. That's a great, great development. Looking forward to it. It also opens, and those things, of course, if you have a serious problem, then that would be covered by basic healthcare. That would be free. Just the practice of building a new organ and transplanting it would be entirely free. You're launched back in society a few months later after recovery, whatnot, or a few weeks later. And you go on your life, everything's covered, everything's good, you're not a liability for anyone, and you're not lounging immovable because you can't do anything because you have failing organs. You're productive. That's great. But new businesses would arise from this too. Businesses that would be elective, like if you're able to grow organs, you can still do it while, like if you want to spend money, you can still have those grown before you have a problem, number one. But also, you could probably have some labs genetically engineer a bigger, stronger heart, for example, and then have that transplanted into you as an option. those are elective surgeries, just like breast transplants or anything else. Because your body's fine. You're just choosing to do something a little bit different, right? And you have an organs or skin or whatever you want added to it. So private companies would be able to actually offer services that are non-critical. So professional private clinics that do specialized work. Those will crop up, and that's fine. No problem, free market. Offer a service. If it's safe, let the FDA or the regulators approve it. If it's safe and whatnot, and then go nuts. Then it's a free market. If there's a demand for it, somebody's going to bring up an offer, right? Self-diagnosis tool, that's very powerful in the future. Right now, we do have a lot more control over our own diagnosis. There's some apps, some smartphone apps that allow us to diagnose, for example, skin cancer, things like that, or some diseases that you may have that are detectable by skin color or the color of the eyes. Like the white of the eyes kind of changing, becoming yellow, things like that. So these apps allow using AI allow us to diagnose whether or not you're having a problem, or some cancer, or some serious disease before you even go to the clinic. So it's like your first diagnosis from an artificial intelligence. That's great. And if it's on your smartphone, you don't need to do a whole lot. It's very manageable. Costs are extremely low. You just download the app, maybe a couple of bucks, and then you can check yourself and your family members. And more apps will come out because AI is becoming quite exciting, and a lot of investment that are going into it. So we can do a lot more self-diagnosis, so you catch problems before they become an actual problem, or earlier and earlier than before. Because right now we have to go to the clinic, and most people don't want to go there. They don't like it. Don't want to go to the emergency room or the doctor. You're delaying, and then stuff become more complicated or more problematic inside the body as you wait, even though you feel bad or something. That's a lot of the problems with today's medicine. It's catching things early. So self-diagnosis tool, either through apps on the smartphone, but also through design applications that can measure and detect some issues from small quantities of blood, for example. Those are actually now coming out and being marketed slowly, so that people that want to have those devices in their homes and are willing to pay for them can start having them, and either because they have a suspicion or history in their family about these issues or not, then they can do early detection as well inside the home. And then you can go to the clinic. If the AI detects something, you go to the clinic and have yourself checked for a second opinion, and then use the services to heal that would be free, right? So that's really exciting. So let's do more of that as much as possible. A healthy population that is not suffering is good for everybody. Now, gene editing is also a very popular thing right now. They're using CRISPR. For example, that's one of the proteins that is most used for now in trying to cure genetic diseases. Like a treatment for blindness came out in 2017 and started. Some hospitals started curing those afflicted by that specific blindness disease. So we'll be able to cure genetic diseases in the future. Now, diseases, again, like what is covered here for free and in a system where you have free and also paid services? Well, again, it's if your genetic disease gives you a lot of pain and suffering, then it's covered. Then it's cured. We cured the gene, right? We fix the gene. Then your body recovers, and it's fine. It's not even surgery. It's like a freaking injection, right? Very, very easy. But if you have, for example, genetic baldness, well, maybe that's not covered because it doesn't allow you to suffer. Maybe emotionally if you lost all your hair, but it's not something critical. So the ministry would probably say, well, this is an elective treatment. If you want to have it, go for it. But I mean, it's not life-threatening, doesn't cause serious issues in productivity and your lifestyle. You can still go after your projects. Being bald can be a fashion statement after all. It's not a big deal, right? So not every gene treatment would be equal. Some of them would be covered, some of them would not, and that's fine, right? We can't expect the health system to cover just about everything, like I mentioned before. The biggest thing that I want to talk about is aging. I want to circle back to that because I believe now we have the first aging treatments that are in clinical trials. I know some of the people, I've interviewed some of the people that were working on these. We're actually treating the mechanisms that cause aging. We're looking to that. Because some of the systems in the body start failing, and it causes a cascade of issues inside the body where the body doesn't heal itself. It doesn't heal its DNA as it divides. It doesn't divide enough, and the immune system goes down. I mean, there's a cascade of problems that happen with aging because of some systems failing or becoming slower and things like that. There's a bunch of issues. There are 7 categories of problems that occur as we age that cause what we know as aging, and eventually death after maximum of 120 odd years, right? If you manage to live that long. So we're tackling these specific issues that cause a cascade that make us age, per se. So in the near future, and as we move along, what will happen with these treatments, we'll be able to age healthy. Okay, so we still go on in years, but our bodies would not degrade as much initially, and then as we refine those treatments and find better ways to actually keep the systems running at a 20-year-old level, then we'll remain very healthy and young looking and young feeling for a longer time. And that's great for society because aging causes issues. Wisdom is great, but wisdom is only aging experience. You don't need to have gray hair and a broken body to be called wise. You can be very wise, like you can be, I don't know, 80 years old and look like 20. And you'll still be wise like an 80-year-old man or woman. You understand? So that's the goal of these treatments, is allowing us to age and retain our health and our energy. This also means that the age of death is also postponed to much later, because the reason of the death is because of these systems eventually cascading into failure. Now, if we fix them and they remain like we are when we were 20, then essentially our bodies don't die, or die like after hundreds of years of usage, I suppose. And we don't really know what that looks like just yet, because we just don't know. We don't have the track record, we haven't experienced it yet. But for productivity and society, it would be great if the whole population stays young. Like I mentioned before, people right now, there's a lot more people that grow older that don't die so young. The average age of death in the developed world is somewhere between 80 and 83 years of age. That's average. And it's getting older. Now, the population's getting older because the range is expanding. And we'd like to have all these people very healthy, because that means a lot of resources stay and is used by society for other things, that people don't suffer as much, because aging does cause suffering. And the actual cost, like the financial cost for pills and medicines, goes down, because you're a 20-year-old body for like 200 years, right? It's great. So it's good for society. And because it's so good for society and avoid suffering, that should be covered by the free healthcare system, those treatments, I mean. And also it creates the equality. You don't necessarily want some people to age and others people be privileged and not age. Some people suffer while others don't. That doesn't sound right. That's not okay. And nobody wants to watch other people suffer either. So let's make sure that's covered. However, here's a problem. Not everybody I've interviewed about this wants to live forever. No. Some people want to have a finite amount of years to their lives. Now, the opportunity here is that you can probably refuse treatments. That's one thing, which is kind of weird, because then you get to age, and then like the body actually aging, and get debilitating diseases and Alzheimer's and dementia and these things over time. Nobody really wants to suffer. So the only solution to this is that your treatments are free and for everybody. You can refuse a treatment if you really want to, no problem. I mean, that's freedom. You're not forced to take treatments, but it's provided for free. But then when you're done with your life, well, you should be allowed to die. And that means not allowed as in like, oh, wait another 50 years until you die of old age. No, that's unfair and it's suffering. No, I'm talking about euthanasia. So maybe you're done after 400 years of living a healthy life with an equivalent of a 20-year-old body in health and energy, and you just want to call it quits for whatever personal reason you have. Like, I can't imagine it, but freedom, right? And then you can go to a hospital. Okay, I've made up my mind. I'm done with this life, or for religious, political reasons. I don't know. Who knows? Family reasons. I have no idea. And it's like, okay, well, evaluate my psychological state, and I'm going to show you I'm of my right mind. And like in a couple of weeks, I'm going to gather my family. I'm going to. I'd like you to end my life in a nice setting, and that's going to be that, and it's going to be my choice. Great. I think that's wonderful. I don't see that for myself, but freedom is important. And if there's no if there's no date where you can anticipate a death, and you do want to die eventually, but that's the only reasonable option. I mean, nobody wants to suffer, right? And finally, I want to touch on mental health. Mental health is also as important as physical health, and it actually carries as many criteria as physical health. Just because a person we can't measure suffering inside the body doesn't mean the person is not suffering, because we have mental diseases where people are suffering internally, right? They're suffering all sorts of problems, and they don't like it, and it's painful. It's not physically painful, it's psychologically painful, and that is very important. The psychological pain can be as bad or worse than physical pain. So we need to ensure that we have free mental health care as well for perceived pain, right? Real or virtual, it's still perceived as pain. You still feel it as an individual. It doesn't matter if it's shown on a device or not. So that's really important to cover that. Make sure that people are also sane and safe and feeling good psychologically, just as much as they are in the physical world. So we need to cover that. And there's also a set of electives that you can cover on a psychological level if you want to have some counseling. You're not suffering, but you want to have help, with your life and choices like we do now. No problem. Experts will be available. AI will be available. Information on the internet will be available to you, and you can pay for services for that. But to avoid the suffering, that's free. Right? Very important. And also, let's not forget, I talked about the Ministry of Justice earlier in a few videos back, where I was saying, well, when people are do crimes and they're judged to have a psychological problem which caused the crime, they need to be corrected or rehabilitated. Well, they're put into the healthcare system as well, and that has to be paid for, right? Because we need to bring these people back to mental health. So that's all part of that system too. Just because you're guilty of a crime doesn't mean that you planned it with full health of mind. Some people are just crazy. Some people are unbalanced temporarily, and they unfortunately did certain things that were a problem, where that causes danger or whatnot. And I want to bring them back to health, and that can happen to anyone. And some people are unhealthy in their minds, and they stay in that suffering state all their lives without doing anything that would be called a crime. They're suffering in silence. They need health care. Some people are in the same kind of boat, but they lashed out because they're suffering. somebody got hurt, whoop, they brought into in front of a judge, and they spend a whole bunch of time in prison because of their reaction towards another person. It's the same. It may be the same illness. So we want to cure the illness. And curing the illness cures the reaction, cures the potential crime out in a reaction to the suffering, to the illness, to the psychological unbalances. So we need to spend time investment, and we need to have a free mental health care as well, to ensure that everybody is healthy, calm, and that crime goes down. Because people are okay and they have self-control, they're calm, their biochemistry in their brain is balanced, you have normal reactions from them that are very social and safe and non-problematic. So let's push in that direction. I think that's really important. Let's make sure everybody is covered, no man left behind or woman left behind. And whatever is the extra stuff, aesthetics or whatever, those can be all electives. And the ministry just cuts and say, okay, well, this is here, this medicine goes here, this medicine goes here, paid, free, subsidized, takes those decisions, similar to what Canada and most of Europe actually does right now. So we have great models that work. Let's continue on that route into the future. I think that's it for today. Next week I will be talking about the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration. Following that, I'll be finally talking about the final ministry, which would be Ministry of Education and Trade. Now, I intentionally kept that for last because the whole next section, the last section of the book, is going to be about the economy, like the big beasts. But I'll get there in a few weeks once I get there in writing. Bye-bye for now.